My name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast, and it's week 2 of the Great British Bake Off.
Indeed, it's Biscuit Week.
It's Biscuit Week, and what a fine week it is.
Indeed, full of bends and snaps. So many bends and snaps. Elle Wood was walking through the tent, just, encouraging everyone to embrace their more confident self and flirt with postal men.
So much bending and snapping, I thought RuPaul was going to come through herself. Anyway, look, it was Biscuit Week. It was an interesting week. There were some interesting judgments. We'll come to that a bit later. Yep. Look, Again, it's a really fascinating sort of... Biscuit Week's always a fascinating one to see what they pick. Normally, you've got some form of construction and some form of built thing. This week, They went with moulded.
Look, I think all three tasks were, challenges were solid. I think opening with Florentines, beautiful challenge. There's enough creativity there with the flavours and whatnot, but also needing the skill and the judgment. I think then setting the macaroons, not macarons or Macron or Mickey Rooney or wherever you want to go with this. Thank you, Resilian, for reposting that meme. That's also a strong one. Plus, I love good macaroon. Yeah. And I liked seeing the moulding. It's got to be a showstopper, and there's only so much you can do with biscuits.
So what I actually thought when we go through it, and we'll talk a bit more about it when we get to the showstopper, I didn't actually end up having that much of an issue with the showstopper.
No.
But I thought it was really badly explained. I think the showstopper was one of the most poorly explained showstoppers I've ever seen. And I don't even put that on the host, because again, they're given a script, not their fault. But literally, when they announced what the challenge was, right? They wrote it up. If you read all the cribs and stuff like that, there's like 2 words. What they actually said it was a 3D biscuit table setting from a table that you once had.
Yeah, I think... one, they obviously wanted a story behind it, which is good because you get to know people. 2, they wanted to make it very clear it had to be 3D. Like, you couldn't just ice a massive slab.
That's what they all say.
Just whack down a mega biscuit and just start painting away.
Mega biscuit, mega biscuit, mega biscuit, mega biscuit. But I think it was it was poorly described. First of all, I get the idea they want a story.
Yeah. But
you don't need to tell the story in the title. What is this, a Fiona Apple album? That's what it felt like. It felt like a follow-up to When the Porn by Fiona Apple. So the first challenge was obviously Florentines, there were 36 of them.
Yes.
And you had 2 hours to make 36 Florentines.
Yes. Now, this is where the bend and snap really started to take shape. They wanted more snap than bend.
And as I said, it's a matter...
In fact, they didn't want any bend. No, they just wanted the snap.
Literally a matter of 30 seconds either way on the bake. As they said, 30 seconds too short, it's going to bend. 30 seconds too long, it won't snap. It'll just be really solid, and it'll just sort of won't work. Right? So it's a matter of you've got to be sort of within a 30-second window on either side of what you need.
And then you have to be very clever with your flavours, because you've got nuts in there, and as we'll see, some people like the nuts big, some like the nuts tiny.
Some like a medium/moderate sized nut.
Yeah, some like excessively big nuts.
Some like just an average one. Anyway, so we get into the challenge, and Peter was the first one they sort of went to, again, as previous star baker. Yeah. And he went with the sticky toffee Florentines. Now, the sticky toffee, as he said, when he was growing up, that was his favourite dessert. He loves a good sticky toffee pudding.
Stiffy toffee pudding?
Stiffy toffee pudding, yes. A sticky toffee pudding.
I think the stiffy toffee pudding is what he started to produce with the big nuts in his teenage years.
So, the sticky toffee pudding was obviously something...
Oh, Peter, your sheets, not again.
Oh, no, I was just making...
He's having pudding in his bed again.
Oh, my God. The queen of accenting, on fire tonight. Dates, sultanas, and walnuts in there. Now, I'll get this out of the way early.
You don't like sultanas.
I fucking hate sultanas. And they were everywhere. In fact, we got later on, we got jumbo ones. Like later on in this challenge.
How big do your grapes have to be to make big sultanas?
Yeah, it's got to be
Like, they've got to be some massive grapes.
You've got to have the grapes. You've got to have the grapes.
But you don't want big grapes around your big nuts.
No, you really... Well, I
Because
mean...
you'll either have to use some hemorrhoid
cream or have surgery or a salt bath. Anyway, that's too close to home. Moving on. Surah. All right, so Surah was using rose water and saffron, which I did note because, you know... Two very powerful, very strong flavours in hers.
But she was very clever. I liked how she brought in her Persian heritage, and she's like, okay, I'm going to make cardamom tea to go with this as well.
Yes, she did.
Which I thought was very nice.
Whereas my favourite part of this is the start of a bit of a runner. Noel. Noel spent a lot of time with Surah today. We'll come to that in the technical a bit later on. But here is where he goes, so you've been practicing this week? And she goes, yeah, I've been baking. And he goes, no, not that, no. I mean, like, just working with your arms. It's like a push, and like shove, and a bit of tip. She goes, no, we don't want to do that. And he goes, no, I would. Like, seriously, you should just walk around like, well, he's doing very good. Just push it off the bench. Just shove. Just knock it with the back of your hand. And you can just see Surah go, like, bursting into hysterics going, no, I'm not. And it's like, no, I'd do it. I'd definitely do it. I like the way that they tried to sort of ease Surah into this week by just sort of making a joke of the whole thing.
And, you know, just taking the piss. It's always good just to, you know, treat something that was quite obviously horrifically painful for two people in that tent and just turn it into a joke, a running joke.
And then it got
Take the sting out of it, put the laughs in.
And then Noel Fielding went even deeper. So Noel Fielding uttered this sentence inside the tent. I had a dream about Paul. He was just in an apron. It was pretty powerful.
That was after Surah saying she had a nightmare with Paul.
Yeah, she had a nightmare with Paul. His was about a dream with Paul just in an apron that was pretty powerful.
And I do like the editing choice to just do a little Paul over the shoulder as if he'd heard this whole...
As if he'd gone, apron? Apron? I hope that at some point, like, you just get Paul appearing just in an apron and, like, Noel freaks.
I've got it. So where the hosts and judges are living in the super mansion, right? You know, Noel went sleepwalking and actually stumbled across Paul Hollywood.
Just in the kitchen with an apron.
Just with an apron, with his midnight naked bacon.
I mean, let's face it. If anybody was going to bake in just an apron, Paul Hollywood is that guy.
And, you know, it's coming on to summer there. You know, when they were filming, it's a bit warmer.
Paul is incredibly that guy. Although, again, I can say that my co-host for the podcast, forget the idea of Paul Hollywood in an apron. When they cut to the start of the show,
I don't know what it is.
And
like
Noel Fielding popped up.
I just wanted to crawl under that jumper. Like, it's well established I have a very strong fondness for Noel Fielding.
Which is perfectly valid.
And I have for many a year. Like, it's been a good, 20 years? When did The Mighty Boosh came out? I can't remember.
But no, you saw that jumper and there was an audible sigh.
I don't know what it is. I mean, it's not like overly sexy. It's not like, you know, you're going to see that pop up in a porn or anything, kind of like...
Well, if Noel Fielding made a porn, you would.
Yeah.
He would do that.
He would totally do that. Although I'm expecting like more like heels and boots and
either
stuff.
or.
But anyway, all good.
Speaking
heels,
of
boots, and that jumper.
Speaking of weird porn fantasies, Linda and her husband's DIY shed. Let's talk about it. So, look,
she's a gardener.
I'm kind of glad that Linda didn't go home last week when she got really close because. We got to see her husband's DIY shed, and it is very DIY. Like, it looked significantly like she'd gone out of the way. Oh, God, we've got Joe Brand pitching in. Joe Brand's pitching in on us. Got rid of Joe Brand. We can go back to it now. Don't get into the back of... You know, what the last thing the world needs is a recap show of Bake Off.
I know.
Like, go away, Joe Brand. We don't need a Oh, anyway.
Well, there goes our entire podcast career.
There goes our whole thing. It's done for. Anyway, so where were we? Oh, yes, we were back at the DIY shed, and it's a very DIY shed. It looks like he did put it together himself over, like, months. Yes. And like, I think they were trying to show that it was this huge shed with a bar, but instead it looked like a very tiny garden shed that he'd, like, found a very small counter and put up like it was a bar, and, like, she stuck her head in the door. It looked like there wasn't enough room for two people in there.
Now, I know for a fact, because we watch a lot of, like renovation shows and things like that, particularly like UK ones, And they're like, they do it in Australia as well, but it's mostly boomers. But there is a penchant for creating bars in your backyard. Like, because England is a dearth of pubs, as we know. There's just not a bar to be found.
You cannot find one.
You can't fall over one no matter where you're walking. So for people to build them in the backyard, but I feel that it's now gone that step further, because when we did the at home with Laura...
Yes.
And we saw them doing their outdoor wood-fire pizza oven. They had a little, beer garden established, blah, 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 by Laura.
Question.
Yeah.
Was Laura running an illegal restaurant?
just an illegal...
Out of the back of the kitchen.
COVID restaurant. She's like, when they could extend their bubble, she's like, we're going to have a gastro pub in the backyard.
If COVID turns up, possibly literally a gastro pub. Anyway... So we then got Mark. Now, again, as I said last week...
Instead of the breathalyzer machine, they have a nasal swab machine.
I can't wait for pubs to have one of those. Anyway, Mark. Now, again, last week I told you all that I'm going to be kind to everyone. I'm pronouncing the C or the K. So, Mark, you know who I'm talking about. Made his comment about his ones where he said, "In my nuts, I want something bigger."
Yep.
What a comment. Mango Lassie Florentines is what he went with. But there were lots of mangoes.
Yeah.
We don't really like to cross over conversations, but I am going to briefly cross over conversations here. We've seen a lot of mango in Great Canadian.
We have.
Oyax, of course, was talking about the joy of Nigerian mangoes. Also, there's a Fruit Pirate's daughter in Canadian. I wonder if this is where the supply is coming from.
Wow. I'm curious to see how Big Mango has managed to weasel its way into Bake Off. And if this is just a one-off or it's an entire trend that we're going to be seeing.
I wonder, has Dole opened up any mango companies?
Of course.
Because I know they're doing pineapple, but maybe they've opened up mango. Anyway, we then got It's a Mango Off, as though Andy Allen from MasterChef Australia had entered...
Basically, anyone could be, people could be wearing white shoes, and if you're like, it's a white shoe
It's a white shoe off, everybody! It's a white... No, don't take your white shoes off. That's actually against occupational health and safety.
You're all wearing aprons. It's an apron off!
No, don't do that! Paul's naked! Now... We got a bit more of Mac, and I mean, look, obviously, as you know, spoiler alert for those who haven't watched the episode, what the fuck are you doing? Mac goes home. So it was the only bit of Mac we're going to get. He made mango and cumin Florentines, which I thought was an interesting call, but I wasn't really that worried about what he did flavour-wise.
No.
There were two things I was interested in with Mac.
Yeah.
The first was he decided to have a hand-painted peacock design, which is not a phrase I'm used to hearing.
No, and it really didn't add anything to the Florentine.
As Paul said when he got to the judging, it looks like you're celebrating Wimbledon.
They did have a tennis ball-esqueness to them.
And to which Mac sort of went, yeah, no, that's what we're going for now. It's now officially that. But there's something a bit more interesting about Mac. I know that in TV people like to play up the whole rustic nature of writers and authors. How many authors do you know that are still using a typewriter?
They usually...
I know they all have one because they like pretending, but realistically, you're word processing this shit now.
I know, and could you imagine having to try and source the tapes for typewriters?
Do you know how hard it is to save typewritten work to the cloud? You've got to throw it in the air, it comes back down. It's a nightmare.
Using Dropbox, you can try literally dropping it in a box, but it's not... really the same thing.
And forget the idea of giving it to your editor and your editor working on it at the same time you are. If their text doesn't pop up.
No.
That's a problem. I'm baffled. But seriously, they go, Mac is an author writing his books. He goes, I'm done. And it was one page. And I like the idea that when you open up go to the page, it just said it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And that was the whole book.
No, I reckon he wrote Hermione's study text, which literally she opened the book and it said study text.
That was, again, it felt like they didn't want to pay for copyright.
I know.
Study text.
We're not saying what she's studying, just that it's a study text.
Hermione is here to study. Study text. There's so many options for that going
Maybe
forward.
She's doing a textbook writing course and it's about Study text.
Yeah, or maybe she's trying to teach people study habits.
Ah.
And so study text is what she's actually studying. It's called study,
Study
text.
text.
The book.
Not to be confused with purely study text,
Yeah,
which is STUD.
DIE or
Yeah, I don't know how.
Let's go with that.
Trying to make it like sexy with the start and
We get there. We're there. Or, study texts in terms of a builder.
ooh, he's coming in to put up some drywall.
Make sure the studs are hit. Anyway, that might have it improved. Anyway, Dave. Now, again, Dave had a very good week this week, obviously. Ends up being Star Baker. He went with the feathered chocolate mango Florentines. Again, mango, although he seemed to be the only person that used mango correctly in this challenge. I mean, we got Hermione, we'll say in a minute, who didn't actually soak them properly. And then we got the counter side of that was Mac, who soaked them too much.
Now, is my memory correct, but did he get a crunch? I don't think he got a crunch.
Well, we'll get to that in the judging.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Because-
they mentioned a bend there.
Because we need to talk about Dave's dog. They sold the idea of this Japanese hunting dog. I don't think it's a dog that you take hunting. I think it's a dog you hunt. And I raised this because Dave had to fucking carry it back and wouldn't come back.
Like, I like that, possibly the Japanese are like, you know what, we're not going to hunt animals because we farm them. We don't need to do like a cruel sport where we go around terrorizing, local animals with hounds and guns and blah, blah, blah. We'll just have a hide and seek game with these dogs that will run off.
Yeah,
like when they say release the hounds, that's what you're finding.
Yeah, the Japanese are sitting there going, we don't need to kill anything. But,
No.
We're just a hide and seek dog, really. That's all we're after. A Japanese hide and seek dog. That would be fantastic. But I mean, look.
Could you imagine then, the English come to visit Japan, gifts are exchanged, someone is given what they've called a hunting dog, and this Englishman's like really happy. He's going to go back and go, screw your pointers and setters, I've got myself a Japanese hunting dog.
Goes out into the wilderness, shoots a duck, goes, go, and the dog runs the opposite direction. And it's just ducking behind a tree going, come find me, come find me.
And it's still there to this day.
Never came back. It's like the Japanese soldiers lost in the New Guinea jungle. It's like, no, I don't believe the war's over. Now, I say that, but I mean, to be fair, we did, of course, Leo, the legendary Leo, was a Ridgeback, which is a hunting dog, who would not hunt to save himself.
I think he was less hunting dog and more humping dog.
He was far more humping dog than hunting dog. I'd throw the ball. We'd go out the backyard. I'd throw a ball. He'd get the first one. You'd throw the ball the second time. He'd get the ball the second time. You'd throw the ball the third time. He'd sit down, look at you and go, what'd you do that for? That was dumb.
I keep
and
bringing
walk
it back
away.
to you, and you keep throwing it away. Like, do you want this ball or not?
And as he got later in his life, you'd throw the ball, he'd look at you and start puffing and go, no, there was one day, we will move on, but there was one day where I took Leo for a walk literally around the block. So, like up and around the block of our street.
Yeah.
I got him up to the top of the street and down the other side. And we got to the bottom of the bottom of the street. He sat, he looked at me as if to say, I'm not walking back up there. And then he was so lapsed when he walked back up that he wasn't even pulling on the leash. He could have put his neck out of the collar at any point in time. And he just looked at me like, I'm not going anywhere. Can you carry me? And he sat at about 2 doors down. He sat and looked at me like, I want you to carry me. Now again, Rhodesian Ridgeback, not our hope.
With the delusion of being a lapdog.
Exactly. So again, hunting dogs, not all they're cracked up to be.
No.
Now, Laura admitted that she's never made Florentines before, but as we mentioned before, had a kick-ass pizza oven. So who's really the winner in this challenge? Now that was interesting too, because Laura was admitting that she hadn't made these, but when we get to the showstopper, she worked so hard on it, and we'll come to exactly what that work got her when we get to the judging, because I've never seen anyone look more angry in my life.
I was a bit...
She wanted to jump the desk at the end of this and beat the shit out of Paul Hollywood.
We didn't really see... Okay, we'll wait.
We'll wait.
We'll shelve that.
But Laura admitted she was assaulted, caramel themed, and I'm like, oh, I like you. Don't do that. Don't do that. She went with almond pecan, and she was the one who went with the jumbo raisins, and I went, oh...
Yeah, plus she also chose the milk chocolate, which I like milk chocolate if I had a preference, but on Florentines you do want that stark contrast because, like, even with sultanas and stuff, you got a lot of sugars in your fruits there. So
Meanwhile, a queen is in attendance.
your favourite.
Lottie, a queen, is in attendance with her quarantine Florentines.
She's that snarky, cynical character in a movie
Daria.
with a heart of gold.
She's Daria.
Like when they showed her at home, it's her going to visit her gorgeous grandparents to wave at them, like.
And later on, Noel accused her of having a dead heart. But she made pistachio, almond, and coconut, and then she went with the stripes over the top, and she went with Jackson Pollock splashes. And they went, "Is that uniform?" And she went, "It's a uniform mess." And Paul Hollywood went, "Yes, it's a uniform mess." And I'm like, okay, I get that.
But I feel that she put her time into what was needed, and that is getting the Florentines to be the same shape and thickness.
Yes.
And, you know, when you buy a Florentine with the... I've seen that design before.
Exactly.
It's smart.
And it makes sense. Now, Hermine had shredded dried mango and coconut with ruby chocolate. Now,
Do you think Hermine's mum and Mahathi's dad are friends? Because her mum was a pineapple farmer.
possibly.
You know,
maybe they're part of the same piracy cartel.
Yeah, like she used to harbour Mahathi's father when he was hiding from the pirate police.
In in Pineapple Rind Cove.
Yes.
So she was going with the ruby chocolate. I've made on the Canadian shows. I've made my feelings very clear about ruby chocolate. And it appeared a bit. I'm not impressed with this ruby chocolate appearance. But the shredded dried mango and the coconut. Now again, spoiler alert with Hermines. They were so chewy.
Yeah, she spent a lot of time like putting them into the mold.
I thought that Prue's teeth were going to come out, and I'm not sure they're fake. But like when she pulled at it, when she bit, like I thought for sure her teeth were coming out.
You know what her biscuits would have been, or Florentines would have been helpful with? Like you could have put them alongside of the the ship.
Yes, the ship. Don't worry about it. Just call it the ship. We all know what you're talking about.
The ship stuck in the Suez Canal. Instead of doing it out, you could have just stuck them on the side and everyone just give it a big tug.
Flotation device.
Yeah.
Perfect. Let's talk about the 14th Doctor. Rowan. Rowan is...
I think he's less the doctor and he's the dentist.
No, I think
he's the kooky dentist.
I think he is the doctor, but I think he's the doctor just post-regen.
Oh,
You know how after regen the doctor's a bit messed up for like at least a day? I reckon that this period of time is the doctor's messed up period. This is the fish fingers and custard moment.
Messed up period, or the doctor's daughter.
Yes,
it's one of the off clones.
The war doctor's got his own timeline. Anyway, so I want to say something nice about Rowan's candied orange, cherries, and raspberries with the modelling chocolate waistcoats, and we will talk about those. But the best thing I can say is that when I looked at Rowan's, all I said to Kristie was, "Oh look, he melted some Haribo Star Mix." It just looked like he'd taken gummies, put them in a mould and thrown them in the oven and gone, "Oh look, they melded together."
Look, with time, I'm sure he can produce some pretty amazing stuff because he needs to practice
He's the doctor. He's got as much time as he fucking well wants.
It's not in the fucking
Wibbly
tent.
wobbly timey wimey.
His ideas are definitely wibbly wobbly timey wimey because it's obvious he made his own copper molds for this. Like not only for the fucking Florentines but for the vests.
I feel like he put far too much effort into modelling chocolate waistcoats and no effort into the rest of the bake.
And I don't understand why he went with modelling chocolate when he could have just piped a design of a waistcoat onto them. He could have made an acetate, what's it called? Stencil in the shape of that waistcoat and just spray painted it on there.
Did you see what he did to the actual Florentine itself?
I don't want to know.
There's not a hope in hell that he was going to be able to pipe on, even with the best stencil. There was no way he was going to pipe on all those waistcoats.
Like how did he not go home?
Well, we'll get to that because Paul Hollywood said a number of times about advice. He goes, "Did you listen to the advice I gave you last week? Yeah. Did you follow it? No.
No.
And when they were picking who was going home, they had that conversation where they went, "Well, which one's more likely to grow?" And Prue said straight up, "Rowan doesn't listen."
Yes.
And that's where I got confused about Mac. We'll come to that anyway. We will talk about that judgment decision, which I still think was flawed. Anyway, at this point, Noel also announced that he wanted to get into Laura's chocolate mix. Wanted to get in and swim in the white chocolate mix.
This is the
Kristie
moment I wanted to be the chocolate mix.
Now,
Just keep going.
And Hermine at this point was stabbing Florentines. Then we come back to Mark. Now, again, as I said, I told you, pronunciation helps. So Mark, you know which one I'm talking about, who seems to be acting like he discovered ruby chocolate.
Yes,
because the way he mansplained ruby chocolate almost. I found this thing called ruby chocolate. We've already seen it used once by someone else. We know what it is. And then, he was out hunting for it, it looked like.
Obviously went to deepest, darkest South America.
I'd like to think that there's actually some form of baking action story as to where the leg went. I'd like to think it was hunting ruby chocolate.
He had to face off with the mighty jaguar that protected the ruby chocolate.
I've got it.
The Yucatan.
I've got it. So,
is the Yucatan in South America or is that in Alaska?
No. So, I like the idea
My geography sucks.
I like the idea he's in deepest, darkest Amazon. He's going through the thickets. He's got a massive machete. He's hacking away anacondas. He's dodging them. The ruby chocolate is right there. He goes and he finds the ruby chocolate and he jumps on a seaplane and comes back to the UK like Indiana Jones. Both legs intact. Then he crosses the road to Greg's to go and get some and gets hit by a bus. So... and that's the story of the adventurer and his missing leg.
Okay.
Please hope that's the story. I want it to be the story. Anyway, Matt Lucas then talked about the fact that he'd never seen a square before.
No.
We've seen a rhombus. Oh, I've seen a rhombus. I've seen a circle, but never a semicircle. I really am enjoying Nolan. I'm enjoying them. I mean, there's a couple of things. The time calls have been good.
Yes, you have 5 minutes until we call that you have 10 minutes.
The time calls have been good. I possibly need to see a little bit less of them to make them more impactful.
Yes.
But I can't argue with it. Like, I just can't. I love them. They're absolutely fantastic.
Yes.
Now, when we got to the end also, they did the count at the end and Rowan goes, I need 36. I have 37. Ooh, I'll eat one. At least Rowan should have known what was coming.
Yes.
So, the judges... when Dave came up, Noel said, it's a magic eye puzzle. My jumper makes me think I'm back on the rave scene. They said it had a good snap, it had good flavour, but they wanted more texture with his. Mark, again, pronunciation helps, looked lumpy. And Prue Leaf said with a straight face, yes, I remembered worrying about your very large nuts. They were all popped up and happy to see you.
Look, I've seen someone in plum distress. And if you're witnessing someone with very large nuts, like, it is life-threatening. It's not good. Like, so she has every right to be worried about large nuts.
Getting hit is not pleasant. Anyway, they said good snap, very strong white chocolate, which was good, but it needed more fruit. They said that Laura was very classic. The snap was very good. The flavours were great, but they wanted a bit more bitterness. And they said going with the milk over the dark was a problem. They should have gone dark.
Otherwise, they've been perfect.
Yes. Rowan, they said, have you done these before? Yes. Have you done them to time? No. What did I tell you about that? I know. What the fuck, Rowan?
Knowing is not doing.
Yes.
There are two different things at work there.
There was no snap. There wasn't. They just bent.
Yeah.
They weren't baked enough. And Prue wasn't just disappointed about the modelling chocolate.
She was mortally...
She was ropeable about it. She went, the modelling chocolate has ruined these.
She was disappointed on a soul level.
See, my thing was when she went...
Her ancestors were weeping.
Yeah, when she went, the modelling chocolate has ruined these. My response was, no, Rowan ruined these. He did. He really did.
His choices ruined these.
Yeah, Rowan's creative. Look, the regeneration ruined these. All right, he has weird textural
Dude needs
needs.
a cup of tea.
Has weird textural needs at the moment. Nobody had any fish fingers. Nobody had any custard.
No.
They could have made it though. They're all bakers. Anyway, Sura. They looked amazing. The crunch was absolutely gorgeous. They were very well balanced, but unfortunately, because she made them so small,
Yeah.
it was crunch. There was no snap in the breakage because you couldn't really break them. They did say the tea was great, and at that point, Prue just picked up the tea and went, "I'll take this," and went. With Peter's, the colour was good. He had bend. He had no snap. But they said the flavour saved him. I'm really interested because Prue, every time Peter makes something, she does seem to fawn over it. Even with the bend, she seemed to fawn over what he made.
I mean, he's got a lot of skill and potential there, and I'm really keen to see his journey in the tent.
So, I mean, so they said it was a bit scruffy, was the way they described it. Complete bend, though, and tough from the mango. Like when I say complete bend, with the others, they bent until they fell apart. Hers just bent.
She should have kept them for the final
I was
one.
about to say.
She could have moulded them.
I was about to say they were moulding. You could have just bent them and shaped them. Couldn't have eaten them.
No.
But you could have shaped
Shaped
them.
them.
The shaping would have been amazing. Anyway, they did say, though, that the flavour was quite good once you could eat them. They said that marks were really pretty and neat. They said they were very uniform, but there was no snap with his. But the flavours were really good. Linda...
and they liked his pattern with the ruby chocolate. Like
they did, which is bizarre because ruby chocolate. Anyway, so Linda, they had good snap, good ginger flavour, delicious, but they were really flat and not a Florentine. They were like, you haven't actually made a Florentine here.
No. But nice biscuit.
Exactly.
It's not a Florentine.
Now, Mac, they said gooey, very gooey. The decoration was more tennis than peacock. The flavour was okay, but they weren't Florentines again.
Yeah.
Now, Lottie, they said good tempered chocolate, nice shine, good snap. Paul loved the sour cherry, and then he stopped and he looked around, and he looked back at it and he goes, I just can't find fault with that. He then broke COVID protocol and handled every single one on the plate.
I know, I'm like, fuck you. No one else can taste these perfect Florentines now.
He then further broke COVID protocol by issuing a Hollywood handshake to Lottie. The Queen gets her handshake.
Look, it was the high point of the day.
It was
for her.
definitely her high point.
And I'm like, perhaps she's Star Baker this week.
No, she wasn't.
Here we go.
Look, I get the feeling, and I have not looked ahead deliberately. I get the feeling, again, like a couple of others, we said about Rowan last week, I think that Rowan's here for a good time, not a long time. I think Lottie's here for a soul-crushing time, not an overwhelmingly long time.
No.
I'm just going to admire my queen while we have her. Anyway, the technical was a Prue Leaf one. Yes. You had to make 12 hand-shaped coconut macaroons.
Macaroons!
6 drizzled with chocolate, 6 with mango curd. And I love the fact that Matt Lucas is there as the everyman. So when Noel's doing the whole, you got to do this and this and this, and Matt goes, and why would I make these? Let's go to the shops and buy them. And they went, on your marks, get set, go to the shops.
I mean, I don't think they'd be allowed to. One, they're in their bubble, and two, like, you only get an hour of exercise and one outing a day, don't you, when you're in lockdown?
Yeah.
So, you know, are you going to waste it on macaroons? Or are you going to go,
is delivery
later
plausible?
on, can I go to...
Is delivery plausible? Is there a bakery that does like an Uber Eats delivery?
Yeah, but it'd be overloaded. Remember when lockdown first happened here? Like,
True.
It was fucking weeks before you could get delivery.
The difference is, though, by the way, our baked goods deliverer, we're not going to name them because screw you, our baked goods deliverer during COVID stopped delivering.
When lockdown...
I passed their truck yesterday, by the way. I almost ran her off the road and asked them for the...
jam donuts?
No, I forget the jam donuts. I'm all about the Portuguese tarts.
Oh, that's right. They
So,
were good ones.
Anyway, Laura had zero idea what the hell a macaroon was. I wanted someone to make a macaron. I so wanted to have these weird macarons.
I presume instead of using almond, we're using coconuts. I mean, they're both nuts.
Exactly. Now, I like the fact
Blitz it till I get a powder of some kind.
And I like the fact that Bruce commented that they gave them the flakes, which meant that they needed to actually understand they needed to blitz them. And the timing was basically almost exact.
Yep.
So they didn't have much room. And the first instruction was, make the mango curd. That was
Great.
it.
I'm loving this. And what I liked is they put the pressure on. They went, okay, we're going to pressure it up a bit with the time. We're going to make 2 different flavoured macaroons. So there's, you've got to cover one and you've got to well one. And then you've got to make the curd. Okay, I'm liking the chocolate thing because it's like we're going to reward you because there's obviously going to be leftover chocolate squares to nibble on.
Yeah, it was really cool, and I liked when they announced it. When they went macaroons, and it was the initial macarons or macaroons. What did they just say? And when we went macaroons, they showed you them. You went, oh, that's right. I love macaroons.
I do love macaroons.
It was this lapsed memory of loving macaroons.
Because they're not the go-to at the supermarket.
I'm not, and I don't hate them, but I'm not. I wouldn't seek them out.
I'm going to be seeking them out now.
Yeah, good luck with that. You should.
I'm going to take Matt Lucas's advice.
And go to the shops.
And take advantage of our lucky bubble here in Australia, not so much Queensland at the moment, but...
Go to the shops.
Yeah.
Now, we did get a bit of a hint about the doctor's regen. Because they carp, and everybody is really focused on, like, stirring their curd. And they're all like, there's one hand on the bowl and one hand whisking, or if you're Mac, you decide to use an electric mixer for some reason. But Rowan, as part of his regen, one hand is stirring and the other one is drinking a cup of tea.
Because we know he needs the tannins from the tea.
He has not finished the regen yet. He needs to hurry it up. He's trying to save himself in the challenges. Now, Mark, again, don't need to say which one, Mark's curd would not thicken. And I thought the whole challenge was just going to be Mark making a curd. And I liked the idea that when they went to plate up, everyone else would plate up 12 macarons, 12 macaroons, and he would plate up a bowl of curd, still whisking.
You're still whisking. I'm waiting for it to thicken.
They're like, which one is Mark? And we're not supposed to know. Any minute now. Any minute now. Because we just kept on going back to Mark, still whisking the curd. And like there were 4 or 5 times he went, no pressure.
No.
Everyone else is in the oven and I'm still whisking a curd. Now, Noel then goes over to talk to Lottie and describes Paul's sausagey fingers.
Grasping her E.T. like pale hands.
Grasping her E.T. pale hands. And then he goes, what was it like? You're dead inside. And Lottie's like, I'm not dead inside. I just went numb.
Yeah, I could imagine, she's like, people that she loves, she hasn't been able to touch. And, it's COVID times.
There's Paul Hollywood manhandling with sausagey fingers.
Exactly. It's already a bit bizarre. You're in the bake-off tent. It's overloaded. And then suddenly Paul Hollywood touches you. Not only is it a touch, it's an intimate touch. It's a handshake. And it means a lot. Like, that is a lot to process.
Now,
I would go into full meltdown mode.
Now, where do you stand on Mac and his conversation with Matt Lucas about drinking condensed milk?
Look, not my go-to.
I'm very firmly in camp Matt Lucas, which is walking away in disgust.
Like I know in Mexico, there's like the iced tea or the iced coffee that has the condensed milk in it, and that sounds nice. But I just never considered it.
I'd have to be desperate.
Yeah.
I'd have to be really desperate.
Like I remember when Mum was cooking caramel slice growing up, she'd make the caramel with the condensed milk, and we might get like a little teaspoon to taste, but...
This is why I prefer top and fill. Anyway, you're drinking top and fill, I'm fine with. Drinking condensed milk, no. Anyway.
No, both. No, actually no. Too sweet. Too sweet.
Too sweet.
Too sweet, Reese.
Rowan now was complaining about the macaron mix because his macaroon mix, complaining that he wanted rum. Now, I don't know if that was in the mixture or he just wanted some rum, and this was, again, the doctor regenerating and making demands. Rum. I need rum.
Yes, rum and coconut. That could work.
I feel like most of this episode was Rowan trying to work out how to fully regenerate.
I'm really happy with the job that the camera and the editors did, in that we got none of the whole him just randomly throwing shit outside the tent, just smashing bowls going, no, terrible.
And they managed to turn down, like, the tones on the screen, so we didn't get the glow.
No, it was great.
Amazingly good. So we then got another follow-up instruction. Bake.
Yep.
No timing, no temperature, just bake. And then we cut back to Lottie. And why I go back to Lottie, apart from, again, the Queen, is Lottie asked a question that I think is a great question to ponder as just mankind itself. I mean, what is golden? I think that's a question we've all pondered in our life. what is golden?
Yeah, probably.
Because like they're all going, well, they're toasted until they're golden, and like Lottie's like, but what is golden? And you can almost hear someone else in the tent going, oh, for fuck's sake, are you a bloody psych student? Have you studied? Is this Michel Foucault? Am I about to hear some Michel Foucault? What is golden? What is reality? What is a wall?
Or maybe she just licked Noel's jumper. I presume that's what you do with the big smiley faces.
What is golden,
Usually
man?
just goes under the tongue.
What is golden, man?
Sublingual little wafers.
Just what is golden? I mean, golden. Anyway.
It's still the after effects of Paul Hollywood handshake just taking her through dimensions.
But again, I like the idea that it's a deeper question than we give it credit for. Like, everyone just thought she was like, no, they're golden biscuits is what we're talking about. And she's on another fucking plane.
Yeah.
Is what is golden. And I love where I think it was Laura who went, this is stressful. And Noel turned around and went, no, I find it strangely relaxing. She goes, what, getting to watch everyone? Yes, just casually watching as their dreams all slide away.
Noel's gone to a very dark place during COVID, hasn't he?
I think Noel's always lived in a very dark place.
It's just coming out to play now.
No,
Because he can play the dark one now that Matt Lucas
is there to be sweetness and fucking light.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that. What I love about Noel is when Noel goes to the dark places, he does it in such a colourful way.
Yes. You kind of like, did you just say that? Am I lying in a coffin? Are you grinning at me?
It's very much Noel Fielding could be in there looking down the barrel of the camera going, we're all going to die. And everyone's like, oh, that's so sweet.
He really is the person I want to announce that a meteor is hurtling towards the Earth and imminent doom is impending.
Yeah, it's the only person I feel comfortable with, in all honesty.
You know, if a COVID strain really hits peak, nothing can cure it.
Yep.
He's the one I want announcing.
100%.
You know, keep your Bojo, definitely keep your Scummo. Pop up Noel.
Pop up Noel. Anyway, I now want something marketed from the Bake Off people.
As a pop-up Noel.
You can buy it online, you can bring it home, you can sit it in the corner. It's a pop-up Noel.
I'd be happy with a pop-up Noel.
Are you baking? Are you frying? Everybody loves a pop-up Noel. I just in the corner of the house, it'd make you feel comfortable.
It would.
You know, you've got support dogs and you've got, like, stress dolls and things like that.
A pop-up Noel.
A pop-up Noel.
Just to, meet your existential needs, your little jokes, your perk-ups.
Can answer questions like, what is golden?
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of I'm here for a pop-up Noel. Now, Matt Lucas goes up to Surah and goes, those ones look darker than those ones. Is that intentional?
She's like, yeah.
And no, first she wasn't. First she went, no.
Oh, that's right.
And he went, no. I'll ask you again. Is that intentional? And she's like, yes, it was. And Matt's like, good. That's when we got the time call.
Yes, you've got 5 minutes until we call 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I loved the look on the bakers' faces when he goes, you've got 5 minutes! And they all cut, and he goes, until we tell you you've got 10 minutes. 15. You've got 15 minutes remaining. And you heard everyone in there go, oh, for fuck's sake, Matt.
You can just imagine the conversations that Matt and Noel have been having about, like, Bake Off's full of facts. We'll just come up with our own facts, won't we? Like, Florentines in the 16th century were known as Florentines. I wrote that fact.
I loved it. Look, that's why I'm enjoying them. Now, Rowan looked down at his, which were, let's face it, shit. And he said, well, I think they're beautiful. You can see the influence of fine French patisserie. Batshit, but in a most lovely way.
Like, there was no effort to try and move that chocolate in any kind of motion except just to let it drizzle. It was like someone had gone to I don't know, you never worked at McDonald's, but when the soft serve machine wasn't working well and it would just fart out and you're trying to make it look good, it was like that. He just let it drizzle. Just sloppy chocolate.
And so then they turned around and went, right, take him up to the Gingham Altars. No, Surah, hang back a bit. And she stopped and then looked at Noel with a, oh, fuck you. It was just so funny. All right, now the judgment. Now, I'm just going to read out the order. Now, I will read out the order and then I'll explain why I'm reading out the order. So, Rowan was 11th, unsurprisingly. Peter was 10th. Mark was 9th. Again, no need to explain which one. Lottie was 8th. Laura was 7th. We had Surah was 6th. We had Hameen was 5th. We had Linda was 4th. We had who was 3rd? I think it was Other Mark. Yeah, Other Mark. No, Other Mark was 2nd. Sorry, Mac was 3rd. Surprisingly, given what happened to him in the end, Mark was 2nd. Dave was 1st. Now, the reason I read that out. Last week we pre-recorded. Right, yeah. I'll pull back the curtain a little bit.
Yeah,
we believed that we'd cancelled Foxtel.
Yeah.
Turns out, no.
Foxtel decided that they hadn't.
They decided they hadn't. So that's why we're back to going live, and that's why we're back to recording live. And we went, no, fuck it. To quote Bill O'Reilly, fuck it, we'll do it live.
And in that lovely irony that is the media mogul who stopped good internet in Australia, that their streaming service stopped as we were watching the one show that we were watching on their streaming service.
Week 1 we might possibly have watched through Netflix with
a VPN.
A VPN. Fuck it, we'll just say it. We everyone knows we've got the VPN. That's why we watch Canadian. Anyway, so we watched episode 1 with a VPN on Netflix.
Yeah, we still try and give whoever's supporting financially the
credit,
the show.
which is why, for example, we watch CBC for Canadian because that way they get ratings and they get the views. This week we go to Foxtel to watch the legitimate Bake Off run, and it fails 3 times. So there are gaps coming up because 3 different times Foxtel decided.
We just had to imagine what was going on.
So Foxtel, and I can say this, I'm going to say this with all good impunity, and I know that this might cost us down the track, but I don't care. Fuck you. Fix your streaming service. You just got a massive COVID handout. Fix your streaming service. Anyway.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. Davis first. The showstopper.
Yes.
The 3D biscuit table setting from a table that you once had. Fuck, just long.
What would you make?
What would I make? I might do what Mark did and go really fucking basic. Because what Mark made, on one hand they went, oh, that was really clever, and it looks quite pretty and very sort of pop arty and amazing.
Yeah.
All I thought was, it's a very lonely table setting for one.
Look, I like that idea, and I'd make my table setting from when I was a Girl Guide, and you had your own little plate set. The old metal plate that was white, the camp set with the blue enamel around the outside. It was all made of metal.
Yep.
And I'd put cornflake biscuits in it because I'd always have cornflakes or rice bubbles. It'd be a freezing cold fucking morning, and I'd be staring at the bush, just looking off, watching the kookaburras, eating my cold cereal. It was great. I don't know why I found it so comforting. I mean, it was really uncomfortable. Nothing cozy about it.
No, nothing cozy about that.
Yeah.
And I love where they go 4 hours, and they were doing the 400,000 hours. No, it's 4 hours. You'll never make it. Now, Rowan turned around and said probably the least important thing he's ever said in his life. He goes, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy this. Rowan, that's been your fucking ethos through this whole thing so far. You're clearly not there to compete. You're there to just do whatever the fuck you want and see how long you last. That's what he's there for. Yeah. It's his purpose in there. It's just, I'm going to do random shit and see what happens. I'm going to make a lighthouse.
He really is the hedonist of the tent, isn't he?
He is. He's just there for his own pleasure. I'm going to make a lighthouse jug. Well, it's more about
the chocolate pot.
But it was more about making a lighthouse. I get the feeling he started with the idea, I want to put a light in a bake, and went backwards from that point. That's where I think he got to.
I didn't realise there was such a thing as chocolate pots till I read a book by Paula Braxton, which was all about antique chocolate pots. And then I knew that there were chocolate pots.
So when you said Paula Braxton, I went Tony Braxton and started singing Unbreak My Heart. Anyway, now the trick with this was it had to be moulded. It couldn't just be biscuits building up on other biscuits. Normally you get a biscuit sculpture of some description or a gingerbread house. No, it had to be moulded.
Yeah. I like that different technique. And as we know, biscuits can be a bit pliable when they're waiting to cool.
Now, at this point, Foxtel again decided to have a mini heart attack, and we came back to Peter saying Scotland as a plate as he made haggis.
I'm glad he went with the haggis. I think he was probably contemplating a deep fried Mars bar or the deep fried pizza now, as I've seen.
I've mentioned it many times.
Stonner?
The stonner, the deep fried pork sausage kebab. Seriously, that needs to be made at some point. Mark, again, you can hear the pronunciation difference. This is what I'm here for. Ceremonial coffee set, with edible charcoal. Now, we've talked before about edible charcoal.
This guy gets around. This is an Ethiopian coffee, and he loves his coffee. And he's from Liverpool.
I know.
He just needs to be a Liverpool supporter.
Again, I don't know who he supports. We need to find out. But the edible charcoal thing is interesting. We've talked about edible charcoal before, like charcoal in dyeing the foods.
Yeah. Now you need to be careful in consuming it because it's what they use to stop overdoses. So if you're on medication and you're eating that charcoal,
Stopping your medication, really.
Yeah.
Now, Lottie.
Yes.
I'm now more intrigued by the Viking table setting than I ever was.
She froze the arrow in the air. She left a mark and leave it hanging there. Ooh, whoa, whoa. Bit of Eurovision for you people.
There we go. Some Eurovision, some Rasmussen. Rasmussen up in this house.
Like, I feel her. Like, I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla or Vikings.
That's what she kept on talking about.
Brilliant.
Vikings are awesome. Vikings are kick-ass.
Yeah.
And they went, so you got a bit of Viking heritage? She goes, no, I'm 98% British. It's very disappointing.
I know, considering how prevalent the Vikings were in Britain.
And her name being Lottie, you just hope. You'd hope that...
Is that a Viking name?
Yeah, but Lottie's very Scandi.
Oh, Scandi.
It's very Scandi.
A randy Scandi name.
It's very Scandi. Mac.
I thought it was short for Charlotte, though, which is a French name.
Yeah, but Lottie is a similar sort of...
Feel.
Yeah, it fits. It's also Germanic. It does fit both. Mac.
Yes.
So Mac decided...
Do you think his book's going to be called MacBook?
Oh, God.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
It's going to be on the front cover. What I really enjoyed about Mac was that Mac decided that he was going to go with the IKEA of the tent.
Yeah, flat pack assemble.
Flat pack. Now...
He moulded a couple of things.
Again, speaking of
Only
things
the
that
dish worked.
didn't really need to be said, Mac turned around to the judges and went, you know what? I've struggled with this. Didn't need to say it, we saw it. Like, you could see it in the what you were doing. Dave made a Mexican tea set. Like, and again, the colours were really vibrant, you know. But I was like,
But he got the flavour well, too.
Dave's not here, man. Big trip to Mexico. The flavours, though, were really good with his.
Like it was ayahuasca tea served on the side. just taking a bit of inspo from Sura with the serving of a tea. So he threw it. And Paula also, asking what is golden.
what is golden, yeah. I love... Sura made a Ramadan tea set. Now, what I liked about this, apart from the design looked really cool, was I liked the idea that you can make the Ramadan tea set every night. And then all you have to do is eat the tea set.
Yeah.
Like, you don't eat anything else. Just the feast is the tea set.
You start at dawn. When the sun comes up, you start making this.
Yep.
The Ramadan tea set. Just have to stop yourself from, taking little bites during the day. And then when the sun sets, you're serving up tea. I mean, that's technically what happens, the cooking all day.
But you start with a cup of tea out of your tea set, and then the biscuits are the right consistency to then eat.
Yeah. Self-dunking tea biscuit.
At this point...
it's like a self-saucing pudding, a self-dunking biscuit.
At this point, Gabby did say on Twitter that she was worried that she tuned into the pottery throwdown.
All the moulding and marking and manhandling.
It was a thoroughly confusing challenge insofar as the way they described it. As I said, they're happy with what they did, but the description wasn't great.
It would have been hilarious if Paul Hollywood did walk out in overalls and start crying and hugging someone.
Yes, this is the greatest tea I've ever seen. He's hugging people. Or Matt Lucas came out and said that the kiln was at the wrong temperature, and unfortunately, all of their bakes had fallen apart.
They've all exploded.
Every single one of them.
They're less biscuits and more crumbs now.
Then we got Mark and Matt having a conversation around the Ethiopian pottery set. Was it an Ethiopian pottery set? Was it a pair of tits?
Look, could have gone either way. I'm here for caffeinated boobies.
Caffeinated boobies, nice.
Yes.
Is that a type of bird?
The
rare spotted caffeinated booby. Now, Linda talked about hers being a tea room in Amsterdam, and all I could think was that is so different to Noel Fielding's tea room visits in Amsterdam. Remember the stroopwafel, people. Remember Noel's stroopwafel visits.
For as vanilla as Linda looks and sounds and whatever, I reckon she's probably got a massive kink undertow. I reckon if you go into
They've got a swinging shed.
Yeah. Or if you go into her shed, you just pull a lever and suddenly, like, dungeons and sex nets.
It's all of those things put together. I mean, we know that, again, her shed is very much a DIY shed. So, we're opening up to a lot of this sort of stuff. Now, Mac suddenly became worried about the fact that his flat pack might be too flat.
Because it was a moulding challenge, and I get that because, it's quite often, like, how often do we see, like, make it out of gingerbread, and we're having to see some people assemble pieces by gluing it up the side with, sugar or icing or whatever. They wanted something different. They wanted you to mould it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Lottie
Was that in the label, though? Did it say moulded or just say 3D?
They said verbally moulded. That was the problem. This is why I said the challenge was confusing. They didn't specify. It was a long-winded title and nowhere was the word moulded, but then they talked about it needed to be moulded.
Why couldn't it just been a moulded...
Dinner set.
Yeah, dinner set. Because if you're saying moulded, you know then that you can't just have a flat piece of thing that you're going to paint.
Now, Lottie also couldn't get the wood out of her boat at this point in time. She had a wooden bead in her boat, and that was scary.
I was stressing, Lottie. I was more stressed than you, I think. Actually, no, I wasn't.
No one was more stressed than her.
Yeah.
So Laura was making a cake stand with brandy snaps on it. Now, at this point, Laura announced that she'd practiced this at least 15 times.
Yeah.
It got weird. Really weird. Because she practiced this 15 times, and she was really, I'm doing so well. Aren't I doing so well? I'm doing so well. Aren't I doing so well? And then when she got to the judgment, no, she wasn't doing that well. Paul Hollywood was like, this is not very good.
Now, I don't know. I couldn't see. They didn't go into the construction of it. I thought she'd constructed the tea set.
But apparently the base was sitting just on a base level. Like there was a base she'd made, but it was only thin and it was resting on another base. And Paul was like...
But what about the rest of it? Like, how did she construct... I presume maybe she had the pre-bought, like, little sticks that go between...
Probably dowel, basically.
Dowel,
But the thing was, the way that Paul was talking about it, I think he said was, like, the base wasn't standing on its own. She talked about making this tea set, but she hadn't really. She just layered it on dowel. I think that was where Paul was getting to.
Because I saw on Escape to the Chateau... that they did, like, you can buy the parts so you can actually make your own dishes, like, what they're called, platters. I saw Angie do it. Like, she just had all these old dishes that she collected because, Angela. And she, like, put holes in them and then just screwed the bits in. So perhaps that's what she did. But I don't see that as a bad thing.
It was a real...
Maybe it needed some stuff on top, like maybe a few more brandy snaps around it to make it look full, but...
It was a weird judgment. I think the showstopper judging was really strange. Now Hermine's talked about doing a Japanese tea set. Now, at this point, Matt Lucas also asked about Noel Fielding's comedy.
Hermine obviously had seen Little Britain.
Yeah, but she didn't know that Noel Fielding was a comedian, to which Matt Lucas turned around and went, well, Noel is one of Britain's finest children's entertainers. And again, surely not out of character for Noel Fielding. No.
Surely you'd be reported to Children's Services allowing your child to watch, like, the Mighty Boosh or any of Noel's appearances, like, at
his IT crowd appearances, those sorts of things. They cut back to Lottie, who again is the sweetness and light of the tent, where she said, I just want to curl up into a ball and die quietly.
One of my hopes is, right, okay, sorry, I'm going to go, it's not that Lottie curls up into a ball and dies, unless she comes back as a vampire, which is going to lead me to the next thing. So what we do in the shadows is coming up to, like, they're filming the 3rd season, right? Now, in season 2, they got Helena Garcia on as Nadia Witch, which was hilarious, because there is that connection between her and Matt Berry through the whole British Bake Off. However, now I'm thinking, will they get Noel on? Because that would be fucking brilliant. And everyone's been asking, when will Noel be on?
That will be fantastic when it happens. So back to Mac. Mac was struggling to make his teapot. It looked more like a TARDIS. Although Rowan was going to get into it. Now, he said he went for a terracotta. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it was more pinky orange.
Yeah,
it wasn't very terracotta at all. And like poor Mac, he's like, this just hasn't. Sura with the most honest statement of the week of, I don't know what I'm doing if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Accurate. And Rowan's jug then started to fall apart and was cracking. And he just goes, it keeps on getting more rustic by the minute.
You know, that lighthouse has been through a few storms.
And then there was
It's seen a lot of drowned sailors. It's seen a lot of hot pants thrown off ships.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All I can see now is Captain McAllister and his crew with the hot pants.
Who wears short shorts?
They wear short shorts. Speaking of cracking under pressure, Lottie turns around to Noel and goes, "You need to go now. You're just in the way."
Who would ever say that to Noel? Like, that's how I know you were stressed, Lottie, because you asked Noel Fielding to go away like that.
And they cut back to Mac, and like Mac, I loved this bit of this is one of my favourite pieces of dialogue. It's a bizarre, brilliant thing. When Mac goes, you know, they go, "Oh, mate, what have you done there?" He goes, "Oh, square teacups," and he goes, "Oh, square teacups," and Mac goes, "Is the tea square?" And Mac goes, "No, it's loose leaf." It's like something got lost. And they went, "All right, bakers, we're finished. That's it. Time's up." And Rowan looks at the camera and goes, "I think Paul will be pleased. It's largely finished."
Now, between what the artist drew and what was presented by Rowan, I honest to God thought, well, this is going to be the easiest fucking decision the judges have ever made.
And then they got to Rowan's.
That's what I mean, like Rowan's.
And they understood it, but they got to Rowan's.
Yeah.
And they got the flashing lighthouse bit. The top lemon biscuit, they said, had a nice flavour, but also was like rubber.
It'd been overworked. Like, what the fuck did Mac do?
And they just said, went, "This is not your best." And you could see Prue, like, I thought Prue wanted him just dead. Gone, dead. Mark,
because his macaroons weren't that good either, were they? Like, it was Mac's macaroons that was like up there in the top three.
Rowan was last.
There we go. Like, it just
now, Max was third. So Mac was third. Now Mark, they said it looked very good. It said it looked very Roger Hargreaves. Like, I thought it did look very Roger Hargreaves. Now, Roger Hargreaves, of course, is Mr. Men. So it looked very Roger Hargreaves set-wise. Now, they said, unfortunately, the thick biscuits, like for things like the toast, which he had to have as thick, made it then very squishy in the middle, so it didn't quite work.
But Mr. Bump really enjoyed it.
Mr. Bump loved it. Like, Mr. Bump... And
Mr. Tickle also came over. Little Miss Chatterbox.
Little Miss Chatterbox was there.
Well, I
don't think anyone popped in because it was setting for one. Remember, it was depressing. It was really depressing. They said it was very uniform, but they weren't sold on her flavours.
Yeah.
Laura, Paul wasn't sold on the base of the stand. They said the flavour was good, but they wanted a lot neater. And the thing was, I was like, that's really cool. Then they pulled out and showed the tea stand, and it really wasn't
neat.
It wasn't good. Like, she said she'd practiced this 15 times, and it didn't
Imagine what she would have produced if she hadn't practiced, though. Like, that's fucked. Like,
it's like my theory about Nescafe Blend 43.
It would have looked like the haggis.
Would have. It's like my theory about Nescafe Blend 43. 43 goes, and they went, that's enough.
What was
like, imagine
like?
Blend 27 must have been terrible. Like, lighter fluid. Now...
Blend 27 became Glen 27.
Glen 20.
Glen 20, sorry.
So, Linda. Now, the other thing was that Linda's was very pretty as opposed to Laura's. But the biscuit had been overworked. But they said the design was stunning. And it was the colour. It looked beautiful. Mark, they said it was very scruffy, but it looked the part of the Ethiopian tea set.
And the taste was amazing.
And, like, they went, whoa, that's... And, like, Prue was like, woo!
You'll be up all night. That'll be Paul in the kitchen again in his apron, cooking away at midnight.
Oh, God. Just imagine being stuck in quarantine with those two. Dave, they said it was very Mexican. It was a very good job of design, and the biscuit was sensational. Prue ate it. It was like, finally, someone can bake a biscuit.
Good snap.
Now, they said with Mac, they were looking for moulding, and he went flat pack. They said the biscuit was a bit bendy. The flavour was really good, but it was just clumsy. Surah, they said it looked rushed. Now, when she brought it up, I said to you, that looks a bit stunning.
Yeah.
And then they went, oh, that looks very rushed.
Yeah, I think the rushed part was the icing, not the moulding was fantastic. I thought that was some of the best moulding.
They said the flavour was great and very good snap on the biscuits.
Yeah.
Peter's looked very neat. He nailed the flavours. Prue adored it. Like, Peter made it, so Prue looked at him with, like, googly eyes.
Can we just say, though, if you're going for, something that looks realistic, making a biscuit haggis, I mean, you don't have to be too neat there. You just have to get the long...
The middle can be as rough as you want.
Yeah.
And then Lottie, and I was terrified about this. They said it was very impressive. Paul said that it was a bit all over the place, but it was well moulded together. Prue then turned around to Paul and went, no. It was buried for centuries. Good gingerbread, good flavour. Overall, very, very good. Now, at this point, Rowan described his position in the competition as oblivion. It wasn't just gone, it was oblivion. So I think we were all ready and expecting him to be gone.
Yes, that was it.
Like Rowan was expecting it, as we said, with his oblivion comment, and then when they announced it, so when they talked about what they were thinking, and they talked about Starbaker, and it was clear who that was going to be. That was going to be Dave. But then we got to the idea of going home, and they said it was really between Rowan, and Mac. And they sort of said that Mac's flavours were fine, but he had a few troubles with the construction.
Yeah.
And they talked about the fact that Rowan doesn't take advice. And that, Rowan had a lot of disasters, and there'd been big disasters. And
it wasn't just this week. Last week it was the same.
100%. Look, he's entertaining, but, no. And then they went, and Mac, goodbye. And I was like, what? And, Rowan looked and went, I have no idea how that happened. Like, Rowan was genuinely, I don't know. I don't know. Like, Mac was like, no, I get it, I expected it, blah, 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 blah. Rowan was like, I didn't expect it. No. It was me. So, look.
And again, another example of where the technical doesn't bloody matter.
Did Mac have a great week? No. Oh. But should he have gone home over Rowan? No. No. I think they got that one wrong. I think Rowan probably should have gone home.
One of those calls that RuPaul have made over the past,
100%. So that's Biscuit Week. An intriguing week, an interesting week, a week where Rowan did a lot of batshit crazy things and stayed, a week where Lottie was a queen and stayed.
It feels like there was so much, that we saw, but because there's so many people in the tent at the moment, there's so much we don't see that
we barely saw Dave, and Dave was just brilliant.
Yeah. Like, he was solid, and the same with Peter.
Between there being, Peter had a bit more of an off week than he did last week. Last week was Starbaker. This week his first challenge wasn't brilliant.
No, but then the next two
it was really
great.
Good. But it was really interesting that, again, between having so many people in there, Rowan being batshit crazy, and Foxtel, there were so many things we missed.
Yeah.
So obviously next week we'll see what happens next week. Obviously when we go back into the tent. It's been an interesting series so far. First two episodes have been interesting.
Yep.
So if you're listening up to this as well, thank you very much. Really appreciate you listening into this. For anyone who listens to our Canadian series, next episode of Canadian, of course, well, there will possibly be another interview. Who knows? But then outside of that, it's the grand final of the Great Canadian Baking Show. If you can manage to get a VPN and get yourself to CBC Gem, get all over that series and make sure you finish that up, because it's an absolutely brilliant series.
Yeah, there's a 4-day weekend coming up.
You've got plenty of time. Plenty of time to go watch the entire run.
Eat some chocolate eggs.
Yep, go watch the entire run, get it all done. So, until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
We'll catch you all later.
Bend and snap.